Hi, I'm Diana Montford, the world's first transgender television journalist, born male, became female. I have a very interesting guest for you now. A gay man who is an attorney, a healer, a psychic medium, all sorts of interesting things. He has a very interesting background. His life is fascinating. And here he is, Mr. Leo Weinberger.
Thank you. Pleased to be here.
I'm so glad you're here. So tell me now, tell us about your parents. That's so interesting.
Oh, dear. My wonderful parents, the fact that I incarnated to be with these parents is amazing. You know, they were born in the wake of World War I in Eastern Europe. Had to get through the Depression and then hit World War II. And guess what? They were Jewish. So they were on the run for the entire 6 years of that war, and either in hiding, but no, my mother decided she wasn't going to be in hiding and be a sitting duck, and she decided, hey, I'm going to change my identity, and she assumed the identity of a deceased French woman because she knew French. She dyed her hair, she had blue eyes, and there she went. And she decided, and she had to earn money, so she thought, well, let me help other Jews get into neutral Switzerland. And that's what she did. She smuggled Jews into Switzerland, 6 or 7 at a time, right through occupied France, no less, with my father.
Did they have to pass as Gentiles, the Jews?
Absolutely. False papers all the way. Her sister had a boyfriend who was a functionary in the Brussels City Hall, so he had access to papers and the right stamps and all of that. God bless him. And he helped them enormously as a cover, with the documents they needed.
Right.
You had to have false paper, good false papers that were authentic, and he was able to do that for them. And that's how they survived. Until finally things got so dire there that the Germans were so difficult.
Switzerland.
Yeah, well, eventually the Germans really leaned on the Swiss a great deal and said no more unless it's somebody that's pregnant or has a child, an infant child, and so my mother herself had to have a child via my father. And that's how my brother was born in 1944, and they were put in a labor camp in Switzerland, which was far better than getting on a train to you-know-where.
Were they known to be Jewish by then?
No, but they were put, that's where they wanted to they had to get out of where they were. They could no longer stay where they were.
Right.
So
Why did they have to go to a labor camp?
Because that's what the Swiss did. They put you to work.
Even with Gentiles?
Oh, yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, they could be denounced at any time. That was a huge problem, and but somehow they just held on to it, and that's where they stayed towards the end of the war, a long time, the last year of the war.
And then?
Well,
she gave birth in a labor camp.
Correct.
Which must have been terrible.
July 1944. That's when my brother was born.
In the heat, no less. Great.
Yeah, yeah. The stress. Imagine being in a labor camp and going through that, not knowing what would happen if they could discover you or whatever. Yeah. She told her testimony to the Show Foundation. It's all there in 3 hours of video.
What's her name?
Fanny. Fega Weinberger would be her name. Fega Weinberger. You can look her up if you're in a Holocaust museum and hear her story. Yeah. Luckily for her,
she was very attractive.
She was.
So was your father.
Yeah, they were handsome people.
So that, it's sad, but that helped.
Oh, certainly, it helped. They could speak French. They were also very wily and smart, really that way, you know. And you grew
up to be a lawyer, so there you go.
There you are. No, but they really had a maturity about them that I'm so appreciative of even later in life. They really could sense problems and danger. They had enormous integrity also. They knew what truthfulness and integrity and honesty was all about. That's very important because you can't be outside the law the way they were all those years and not understand what honesty was about too. So they could sense if somebody was going to denounce them. You know what I mean? Sure. They knew who to mix with. Right. Very, very careful about that, because it could mean death at any turn.
And then they went where?
Well,
after
they
the war?
struggled back to Brussels, and my father had been married before the war, and so he had to wait the statutory 7 years before his wife, who was expecting at the time, would come back. She never did, and it was later discovered that she was killed in a concentration camp.
Poor woman.
The Germans kept excellent records. Everybody's name is there. And so that was that. And in 1951, they immigrated to Canada because they couldn't get into the U.S. and they knew English and French, so it was perfect to go to Canada. And that's where I was born, in Montreal. Yeah. So, yeah, we lived there for 20 years and then came here. They dragged me to the U.S.
There you go.
Yeah. It's quite a story.
Yeah. And horribly enough, not a unique story.
Yeah. It was amazing how common it is, really. I
Yeah.
just run into it everywhere I turn, especially in this part of the world. You know, there's a lot of survivors still around.
Yeah,
There's
well,
about 1 million of them.
Sadly, there were like 2, 3-year-old children in the camps, and they are now 91 or something, and here they are.
I just watched the 75th anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz. It was just a few days ago,
Right.
and there was a survivor telling her story. She was only in her 80s,
Yeah.
looked just like my mom, and she was in Auschwitz. I mean, she really...
Boy, and that, to survive that,
Well-
that's strictly the luck of the draw.
Well, I had an uncle. My brother is named after our uncle, who was in Auschwitz when my brother was born. And he was named, I don't know, but Jews do not only name children after the dead.
I know that.
So they didn't expect him to come back.
Right.
He did.
Oh, dear. Well, that's
He did.
awkward.
He exactly came back a stick. And not the same person, obviously.
Obviously.
Yeah, I mean, some people really suffered, and he did. He was there for a couple of years, at least 3 years, maybe. I mean, can you imagine? I mean, it's unimaginable.
No.
It's unimaginable. But he
I
came
can't.
back. He came back, and I knew him, of course. He moved to Montreal. He went from Belgium to Montreal,
How
just like
was
us.
he after?
Not good. Not good. A basket case, basically. He was. Not everybody was. For example, the woman that was just at the 75th anniversary at the U.S. Holocaust Museum in Washington, she was pretty together. She
How
gave
about
it-
your mother? How was she?
Not good. Not good. She was not the same person either. My mother really suffered. She was mentally ill, I have to say.
And she wasn't before.
I don't know exactly, but the trauma, you know, we've just got PTSD was totally unknown.
Exactly, yeah.
You know, both my mother, you know, my father wouldn't talk about it at all.
Yeah.
Almost at all, you know. That's very common for that generation.
I know.
You know, even, you know, soldiers or whatever. They
My
come
father
back,
wouldn't discuss World War II. He was a captain in the Air Force, wouldn't talk about
there
it.
you are. There you are. It's amazing. The PTSD is just it's just something, and they just don't talk about it. So it was a form of silence, which I found very disturbing, really. But look, that's what it was. It's just what it was. He wrote his autobiography, though. I found out a lot of information a few months before he died because he decided to write his own autobiography, and so I learned that he had an alcoholic father that came back from World War I, and all the problems that he had growing up, and I didn't know half of it at all, practically. So I'm really grateful that he did that. He also wrote an epilogue, I'll say this, one-page epilogue at the end, where he says, don't think that what I went through couldn't happen here in the U.S. How about what we've got going on now?
Hello.
Okay?
And here in New York, very recently, every single day, for 10 days, there were anti-Semitic attacks in broad daylight, in the street, in the middle of New York, in the middle of Brooklyn, you know.
I didn't believe it. When I read it in '94, I didn't believe. I said, no, this can't be. This is the U.S. Come on. No, here we are.
Quentin Crisp, if you go on YouTube, you can see me interviewing Quentin Crisp. He told me on September 27th, 1991, when I interviewed him, you know, don't get too comfortable, because gay rights come and go, and they could go. And I thought, I didn't say this, but I thought, boy, is this old guy nuts? And I said, oh, Mr. Crisp, oh. But he was right.
Yeah, well, it's, you know, we're definitely on the downslide. There's no question.
Well, fascism is encroaching everywhere.
Yes, it is. It really is. It's really something.
Yeah.
Oh, it's happening. It's happening now. Oh, for goodness sake. I see it's painful to watch. It's just, you know, gay people, I mean, Jews, Muslim, I mean, anybody that's vulnerable is going, that's how it starts.
I know.
That's exactly how, I wish people could wake up. and just realize we're really on a very slippery slope here. Very dangerous.
Yes, yes,
very
yes.
dangerous, really.
Yes.
If it's happening here, imagine other countries. Oh my goodness, you know.
Well, in Russia, they consider gay folk non-traditional.
Well, there you are. I mean, Chechnya has got a concentration camp for gay people.
Oh, no.
Oh, yes. You can look on the internet.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
So we're almost back 80 years.
Look, that's it. So
Pink triangle time all over again.
you shall never give up. You should never. We cannot give up. You know, protecting our rights and fighting for them. It's a never-ending.
In the women's movement, they say each generation has to fight anew. And they're trying to do away with the right to choose and all sorts of things. So, yeah.
It's a never-ending. Yeah, no question.
Now, you are very psychic, and why do you think you chose to incarnate in this family, so traumatized as they were? Why did you do that?
Very good question. I've asked myself, now that I know all this, you know, I'll just say that my parents, I've already said it, but I'll emphasize it again, that integrity was extremely important to them. And they really cursed me with it in a way, I have to say, because it's not the way of the world.
No.
Okay?
Certainly not the way of attorneys.
This world, but you can't really single out attorneys, I have to say. But you're right. I mean, if you're going to fight for your client,
You have to say whatever will work.
well, almost.
Yeah.
You know, but I've learned that if you stray from the truth, if you really lie and misrepresent, you're going to get into trouble.
Donald Trump, are you watching this?
You know, so there's a difference between lying and bluffing, I think, in my view. So I've learned a crafty, skillful way of
or omitting certain facts, which, say as little as possible.
putting the best case forward
Yes.
without admitting, but also bluffing, outright bluffing, like presenting a position where you show your strengths and you just present what you have to present, and you're not lying. You're not misrepresenting, but you're stating your case, and it's so forceful that you're implying something, and that's enough. You don't have to misrepresent. So I'm very careful about that, because it comes back to bite you.
Bad karma.
Exactly. No, really. So they knew that.
I once read something very interesting, that a child had been born to parents, and he, the child, had been the guard who tortured them in a concentration camp.
I heard that.
Yeah, it might be an Edgar Casey thing, actually.
I heard that. Yeah. Look, no.
Talk about hating your kid, you know?
Oh, yeah. Look, I can't speak to that, but all I can say is what my life has been, which is they showed me such a high bar level of I can't use a better word, but integrity and being trustworthy, letting other people, living a trustworthy life, and having people know that they can rely on you. All the friends that my parents had, this was really something, when I was very little, they were all survivors, okay? None of them had been in a camp like my parents, had not been in a camp. But in their own way, had been smart enough, I'll say, had enough smarts.
Right.
But they were smart, but what they really shared was what I'm talking about now, which is, it's kind of like, there's an expression, to live outside the law, you must be honest. It's kind of what the mafia folk do.
That's what trans people do, and did for many years.
Okay, so you can identify
I was
with that.
stealth for many years.
So you know what I'm talking about.
Yes.
So they had to live, they were outside the law or else they'd die. So they had to all have false identity or whatever, some version of that, but they were smart enough to know that they had to be honest amongst themselves. They had to know very exactly where the line was, so that they wouldn't be denounced, for goodness sake. They wouldn't be.
Right.
They wouldn't piss off somebody. They wouldn't.
Right.
They wouldn't step on the wrong toe. They had to live a clean life outside the law,
Yeah.
outside the norm of what existed in Europe at that time. Otherwise, they would perish.
Yeah.
That it was death. It was like a third rail. If they strayed the slightest from that, that's what I learned from them. I think that's what attracted me way up when I was still a little infinitesimal spark of soul, whatever it was.
Did they know you were gay?
Oh yes. Oh yes. It took a while. They knew before I knew, you know. But as is usually the case with gays, but. Never totally accepted it, I have to say, because they're from a whole different world,
Sure.
a whole different generation. They were brought up with very orthodox religion, and I don't blame them at all. I mean, that's just, look, there was such a divide. They came from a different century as far as I was concerned.
Let me tell you a short, quick story. There's a man at this studio named Shannon Taylor. His father, Mike Taylor, née Schneider, is one of the founders of Israel. He's a Frenchman, French-Jewish man. He's well into his 90s, almost 100 now. You may have seen him on my show. His parents and his older sister died in Auschwitz. He was a member of the French Resistance. He put his two younger sisters in a Catholic school, and somehow he survived. And the war ended, and he got his two sisters out of the Catholic school, although now they were genuinely Catholic. They'd stopped being Jewish and they, became Catholics.
Yeah.
So now he had to try to wean them away from that and make them Jewish again. And he was one of the founders of Israel. And when he came here in 1953, the guard at Ellis Island had the gall. In 1953, mind you, this man being a Holocaust survivor, to arbitrarily change his name from Schneider to Taylor. Oh. How rude is that? I know. Insane. I mean, but anyway, Mike Taylor is, and he, had a hardware store in upstate New York, and he's a great guy. And if you ever watch Shannon Taylor's show, that's his father.
Oh.
And I've met the Israeli ambassador and everything here in the studio right outside this door.
Wow.
As a guest of Shannon. It's great.
Wow.
But it's do you feel a certain guilt that your life hasn't been as painful as your parents? Or did they ever say, you don't know what problems are? You want to know what problems are? Problems are a guard with a gun pointed at your face.
Well,
that's a problem.
The way it manifested in my particular case, I have to say, I'm sorry to say really, was they were a little bit, more than a little bit resentful of just, our lives were so different,
Sure.
They were, what they went through, even my brother, that he was born in war-torn Switzerland, at the edge of a knife, and here I am, born in Canada in 1954, with everything at our doorstep,
Right.
all the food you want.
The boomer, yes. Sure.
Everything was looking up.
My father went through the Depression as a young man. He could not stand the fact that I had no clue what this was all about.
Well, there you are. And so it depends who they are, but there's no question. I'm sorry to say it, folks. If you're listening, they are listening. They're right here with me because we were discussing mediumship.
I sort of get a feeling they are,
Yeah. I've brought them through, but they're always around. And I don't blame them for being resentful. Of course not. No, I forgive them enormously. What they went through, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. In the aftermath of World War I, my father had an alcoholic father who suffered from PTSD, having been gassed in Serbia.
Yeah.
My grandfather fought for the Austro-Hungarian Empire, right?
And then it turned on him and stuck his kid in a camp.
No, him.
Oh, God.
Him, his kid. What happened was, the custom was for the father to, if the father was being taken, as he was by the Gestapo one night in Belgium, they would send.
I'm going to be sick.
I'm sorry to.
No,
I'm
I must be remembering a past life because this is making me.
It's a terrible story.
Yeah, tell.
They would send the youngest with the parent, and that's how my uncle went to Auschwitz. They went together. My grandfather and my uncle. And my uncle came back, but my grandfather did not come back. But I'm just saying, this is the way of the world.
Let me tell you a short, quick story.
Sure.
I have an actor friend named Alan Lewis Rickman. Not Alan Rickman, Alan Lewis Rickman. His father was a kosher butcher in a small shtetl in Poland, I think. the Nazis came in. He trained as a locksmith, but he didn't like it, so he left, and he became a butcher. The Nazis came in, they got the local locksmith. He was useful. They were at Auschwitz. They had a line. Alan's father was on one line, his first wife, and kids were on the other.
He had a trade that was useful.
Yes,
yeah.
But here's what happened. The German officer asked the locksmith, the shtetl locksmith, do you have any assistants here? And even though Alan's father hadn't worked as an apprentice for many years in the locksmith trade, he said, yeah, Rickman, saved him.
Wow.
Then he came to this country, met a lovely lady on the subway, believe it or not, married her, and they had Alan Lewis Rickman. And, but his first wife and kids, gone.
Yeah. Really something.
And Mike Schneider's beautiful sister was 17, gone. Auschwitz.
Really something. It's, we know they're not gone, obviously, also from our discussion on mediumship, and I'm learning that now.
And I guess maybe it was their karma. Maybe they were genocidal maniacs in Kublai Khan's world or something, you know?
Not even. It's hard to say. I mean, it's hard to say. This is a pretty horrible thing that happened, you know? I mean, I'm not sure we had a...
My family isn't Jewish, but two of my grandaunts. Look up my grandfather, he has a Wikipedia entry, Vasily Alvarez. His two sisters, one was the editor-in-chief of the hometown lefty newspaper owned by my grandfather. They died in camps in France, I believe, although they were from Spain. And my mother was sort of a survivor. I mean, she was in the bombing of Madrid when she was 9 years. She wasn't too well
put together?
Right.
It's wrapped?
Yeah.
Wrapped tightly?
She'd start crying for no reason.
Oh, yes.
Which is, that's Holocaust survivor.
Oh,
behavior,
yes.
yeah.
My mother as well.
Yeah.
She had crying spells.
Yeah, for no reason.
For no reason. She wouldn't know why.
Yeah, I'd ask her, why are you crying?
No.
I just feel like it.
No. My mother couldn't watch violence. I would watch Cowboys and Indians on TV. My mother had to say, you must change the channel. I said, what's
for real.
Yes, she couldn't take it. She couldn't take. I have some of that too, incidentally. I think it's genetic also.
Could be.
But it's also the PTSD.
Which is horrific indeed to be trapped in Nazi time.
Right.
If you hate violence, you know.
But she couldn't watch it on television. She couldn't watch it at all. She had to avert her eyes. It was that bad.
She'd love today's movies.
No.
Where they rip open someone just as a matter of course.
Well, I have trouble with it too.
I do too.
Yeah.
I think any sensitive person does.
Yeah. You know, there's movie 1917 out about World War I.
I don't want to see that.
Well, it's a great anti-war movie though, because it's so graphic. It's so graphic that I think we need to see that to be reminded just how barbaric.
Well, Full Metal Jacket is pretty good.
We've had but this is really graphic. Okay, pulls no punches. World War I. Okay, where horses and all that stuff.
Sure.
Oh no. This is followed through the battlefield.
You can also see All Quiet on the Western Front.
There's that from 1930.
Exactly.
But the technology now really is that you're able. Anyway, I don't want to promote it that way, but it's just
guts exploding, heads blowing off.
We need to see just how barbaric and insane this human species can be.
Well, they say I've had ufologists on the show, and they say the extraterrestrials don't want to contact us because we are hostile, warlike apes, and they choose not to deal with us.
We're warmongers.
Yeah.
For the most part.
Why would they want to know us?
We have a long way to go still.
We really do.
We really do.
And it's come right back. It's almost, come on, anti-Semitism in the streets of New York in 2020? That's crazy.
It's going to go around and around until...
Is this forever?
No. I know that because of me. We go back to my studies, psychic skills studies.
Right.
That's one of the main things that have changed about me. It has to. In order to be a psychic and a psychic medium, you must meditate. You must go inside. You must find that stillness, that soul conscious. And once you do that, you realize, no, you become what's up there.
But don't you then graduate from the earth plane and people here are still hostile or like crazies?
But like any other stressful thing, you learn how to deal with it. You find you're not of it. You're
an observer.
Yeah. You're in the world, but you're not of the world.
Right.
That's the big change that I learned from Lynn Hunter, I have to tell you. In order to do that work, you have to go right brain, upstairs, and you become in the world, fine, because you're a human being still, but not of it. You don't. You can separate.
When you
detachment.
get home tonight, can you channel your parents and see if they liked what we did today?
I could.
That would be nice.
Yeah, I could. Yeah.
I mean, you know, I don't know what else to say. I'm so horrified about what happened to them and everyone. I mean, I'll tell you this. Now, I have nothing against anyone. But now, and I'm not Jewish, was not alive during World War II. I hear a German accent, my blood runs cold. I mean, I turn in horror and shock. That means something.
Well, that's in that movie 1917. Of course, the Germans were on the other side as well, so it's another replay. We have a long way to go. That wasn't that long ago. My grandfather was in World War I.
My father was born in 1917.
Well, this is not that long ago, for goodness sake.
Anyway.
And then there was another one.
Yes,
after that.
In the 40s. It was in all the papers, folks.
That was supposed to end all wars.
Well, how about our generation, Vietnam? Luck, I didn't go, did you?
And now we're bombing 7 or 8 countries. Come on. Yeah. And nobody asked, how do we pay for it?
Meanwhile, people are living in the streets.
There we are.
We could take that money and save people. Now, let's kill people instead.
That's what I mean.
People we don't know, halfway across the world. Anyway, my guest has been.
Oh, are we done?
I think so. In more ways than one, apparently, if the world keeps going the way it's going.
No. Well, we tried to spread enlightenment here.
Yes, well, anyway. You want to send a message, go to Western Union. What can I tell you? Sam Goldwyn, wherever he may be. His grandkid is a big actor these days, Tony Goldwyn.
Tony, yeah. He's in Ghost. He's in the movie Ghost, a great psychic movie.
And he's in, he recently did the Broadway thing of I'm Mad as Hell and I, Network, that's it.
Yeah, he was. He was in Network.
Anyway, my guest has been psychic healer, medium, attorney, and yes, gay man.
Yes.
Mr. Leo Weinberger. We've been talking about his amazing life and certainly his parents' and grandparents' amazing lives.
Thank you for talking about that.
I'm fascinated and horrified. What happened to them is hideous, and they were the lucky ones. Anyway, and we're the lucky ones because here we are. And hey, we're a team. I love you. And I hope you love me. But anyway, I'll see you next time, and you take real good care of yourself. And we must stop the fascism that is coming into our world now. Just one person, just make your life good, and that helps, you know? Love you a lot. See you next time. Bye.